Good morning.
Good morning.
And how are you?
I'm fine.
Good. Fine, thank you. I'm good. We'll do today's lesson, which is lesson 6, and it's also the history lesson. It's the last lesson of history. And so, again, what I will do is go through the questions first, because some of these take a little longer than maybe other questions, such as culture or things like that. So let's go through, and then if I have some extra questions, I'll ask you, or I will review other questions we maybe had from last week. Okay? And also what I will do is, even though your answers might be fine, I'll also make some comments about the model answers that are in the textbook, to some words that are easier, expressions that are easier. Okay? So the first question is, apart from samurai, what kind of people lived in the Edo period? Okay, and before you answer that, many questions in the guide test use a Japanese word, like samurai. So you don't have to go and say, warriors or something. If they ask you about samurai, just say samurai. If they ask you about juku, you can say juku. Because most of the time, it's just easier for you. Your pronunciation, of course, will be perfect, and you don't have to, make something that's maybe awkward sometimes in English. So if they say that, then it's okay. For example, question 6 today is, why did samurai commit seppuku? Well, if they're saying seppuku, you don't have to say, harakiri, and this is suicide by cutting open stomach or something. Just say seppuku. If they ask that, that's okay.
Seppuku is very popular in
No, nobody knows, but since they asked you that in the guide to why did samurai commit seppuku, then just explain it. You don't have to go through a whole detailed explanation of what it is. Sometimes it becomes awkward. It's okay if you want to, but I say some of these questions, when they ask you the Japanese word, it's okay to repeat the word back. It makes the sometimes answers slow or go more smoothly, flow better. Okay, so that's fine. I'll listen to your answers. Of course, you might have prepared something that might define the word, which is okay if you want to, but sometimes they say it's not really necessary. The example I give is juku, right? And so people say, cram school. They're having trouble with pronunciation of cram, right? So rather than say a word with bad pronunciation, just say the Japanese word. Many students go to juku because they need extra studies or something, and that makes it go much better sometimes. Okay, so that's just my hint. And the other thing about this answer, number 1, they probably mention peasants, and if you don't like that word, then farmers is fine. Okay, because there's also a bird called pheasant, kiji, which is, I think, your national bird or something. And so be careful. I've heard many students say there are pheasants, and I go, no, peasants. So farmers works. Okay, so let's start, and you'll begin and tell me, apart from samurai, what kind of people lived in the Edo period?
Some other classes, such as farmers, craftsmen, merchants, lived in the Edo period. The population of farmers was about 80%, while samurai class was only 4%. In addition to them, there are priests, entertainers, gamblers or yakuza, and so on. That's all.
Okay, good. All right, yes, and there are actors, and so, okay, good.
It's different.
No.
Actors is different from entertainers.
Okay, I guess entertainers, I'm thinking, yeah, that works, it's fine. Entertainers, I guess, that covers a broader subject.
Including actors?
Yeah, including actors, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I think entertainers to me sounds like singers or people who play instruments or something. But that's fine. Entertainers, I guess, works. Okay. Yeah. All right. Tell me, apart from samurai, what kind of people lived in the Edo period?
During the Edo period, society was divided into 4 classes, And
Four
some
classes.
4 classes. And samurai were about the 50% of the population, and they were placed at the top of the hierarchy, and followed by the farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. And farmers were approximately 80%, and craftsmen and merchants accounted for 10%. And there were some other categories beside the hierarchy. For example, Buddhist and Shinto priests and nobles and entertainers were not in the social structures of those days.
Okay, good. Except your percentages. What did you say at the beginning? I didn't stop you, but did you say 15% samurai or 5%?
5% of the population.
Okay, right.
5%.
Okay. All right, 5%, right. And peasants, farmers made up 80%. I think if you add 80 and 5, you had 85. So probably merchants and craftsmen were 15%.
Oh, 15.
Is that okay? I just, what you have didn't add up to 100%. And the other people, as far as I know, are not part of this system. So I don't know how many actors and priests and things there were, but they weren't even part of the system. Often I refer to this system as a 4-class caste system. Caste, C-A-S-T-E. And the reason I say that is a caste system is more or less a fixed system where people don't usually go up or down. And a 4-class system, well, people can become merchants and samurai maybe they want to be farmers and mixing up. But a caste system is usually regimented by your birth. That if you're born a farmer, you die a farmer. If you're born samurai, you always be samurai class. Or if you're a merchant, you're always merchant. I'm not sure exactly specifically how much change there was in the Edo period, but basically a caste system defines you by your birth. Where classes are just distinctions of groups. So I say it's a 4-class caste system, and so people stayed in there. And then the other people, it says, outside of these, there were doctors, priests, and kabuki actors who were not part of this whole caste system. They were just outcast. And among that were also people who were considered untouchables that actually performed services in society. They made leather, they made tanned goods, they cleaned the bathroom areas and things like that, which were really, really, not even considered people, even though they did perform a service. So, okay.
You say that kind of people are called
Untouchables. Yeah. Also there's a lot of changes going on, but technically, nowadays a lot of people refer to, like, India has a caste system still, basically because of religion and things like this. They believe that, you're born in this caste system, and India also has people that are considered, what they call untouchables, that do, cleaning up sewers and toilets and things like that are not part of, in Indian Hindu society, and also people who make leather, because leather is killing of animals and using the skins, and even though it's a very useful object, it's something that people who deal with that are considered like outcast.
It's just like Japan.
Yeah.
So even in India.
From what I hear, yeah. So that's why there are also people, untouchables, that were also not part of this system. Okay, I think we've covered that. Your answers sound fine. Again, be careful with the percentages. I would think it would be nice to have them add up. And 5%, 80%, and 15% makes 100. So that sounds a little better. Okay, let's then go to, if you want, then we'll go to question number 2. Question number 2, in this answer, there's a word that people have trouble with, and it's the word vassals. And it's on line 5. If you don't like, the word vassals is not a very common spoken word. It works. It's a good word because it means it has the image of Middle Ages or old times and people who, were under the daimyo. If you don't like that word, I just, basically people works. In this answer, for example, the member using the, sometimes the daimyo travel with, 200 or 300 people. Or you could say attendants. Or you could even say servants. I don't know if they're all servants, but the idea is attendants or servants or people works. And the pronunciation of those words is a little easier. And again, vassals is not.
How about the subordinates, in other words?
Subordinates, that would be okay. But probably just attendants, I think, to me, I would choose attendants because it's easier to say, very clear. Because I heard a lot of people have pronunciation problems with the word vassals. Okay. There's also a word in English, vessel, V-E-S-S-A-L, which is a boat, a ship. Impaku? Something paku, right? Right? And so there's a mispronunciation sometimes. So tell me, all right, I heard that in the Edo period there was a procession of feudal lords. Can you explain what it was like and what it was for?
During the Edo period, there was a system of alternating residency practice called Sankin Kotai, and the feudal lords were required to move periodically between Edo city and his domain, and they typically spent in alternate years in each place, and he was required to leave his family there as hostages when he returned to his domain. The procession of the feudal lords and their people, subordinates, to and from the capital of Edo, and it came to be known as daimyo goddess, the procession of the feudal lords. And the size of the procession indicate the status of the feudal lords. So it was made up of hundreds up to 1,000 people.
Okay, indicated.
Indicated.
Okay. All right, that's good. I'm going to ask you another question. In this answer and other places, I just say this alternate attendance system.
Alternate attendance
Yeah.
system.
And even though, tourists who come to Japan who've never been here before and don't know anything about history, if you told them, oh, what is Sankin Kotai? Oh, it's alternate or the daimyo, Sankin Kotai, it's alternate attendance system. They're going to say, what is that? They won't really understand what it is. However, for the guide test, it's fine. Okay, because the interviewers will know what you mean. If you say, oh, Sankin Kotai, that's alternate attendance system. Okay, it's just simpler and to use that expression for the guide test.
Alternate or alternating?
Oh, well, I think I think it's alternate attendance system.
Alternate
Works
attendance
best,
system.
yeah. Okay, so as I say, this is again one of the tricks of the guide test. Because you're in Japan, they know what they want you to say, and they probably want you to say alternate attendance system. So it works, although tourists won't know what that is. But if they have any idea of history, then they will know. Okay, so in your answer though, you did good, but one of the main points is maybe the last sentence that's in the guide test is that, why did they do this? I don't know if you explained it, but why did the daimyo have to do this?
Because the feudal lords were required to spend alternate years in Edo and his domain, and they have to move periodically to and from capital, and to move periodically between Edo and his domain.
Right, that's, I guess, the process. What was the purpose?
For the purpose, okay, the expenses of maintaining two residencies, and their journey and making them unable to build up wealth.
Sure.
This is the purpose by the supervision of the Tokugawa shogunate.
Sure. Okay, so add that to your answer. Just that, the purpose was to keep, the daimyo poor.
Oh.
Right? The purpose was to control them financially because maintaining 2 houses
And journey.
and traveling, right, and the journey going back and forth cost a lot of money, which is what, about 70% of their money. So they didn't have other money to do other things. Okay? And your answer, good. I'm glad you mentioned to and from. A lot of people, like for example, even in the model answer, it said they were required to reside in alternate years at Tokyo, and they had to travel to Edo. But they didn't travel to Edo, they traveled to and from Edo. So back and forth, to and from. That's important. It wasn't just one way and, finished. They had to go back the next year. So it's traveling back and forth to and from. Okay, good. All right. So the cost of doing this traveling and maintaining 2 households was very expensive. Good. Can you tell me then about the procession of the feudal lords in the Edo period, and what was it like? What was it for?
During the Edo period, there was a rule called Sankin Kotai. The daimyo, the feudal lords, according to this rule, the daimyo were required to reside in Edo in alternate years. The procession could be seen when they traveled to and from Edo. That was gorgeous and colorful, but common people were not allowed to see that because they were supposed to sit and bow at the edge of the road. The purpose of the procession or the Sankin Kotai was to weaken the financial power of the daimyos so that the shogun can survive safely and to control them very easily.
Right. Okay, sure. So they used up a lot of money, right, to travel back and forth. Good. Okay. Again, in this answer, there's some words that you might find other words. For example, they use estates or residences. So houses is fine, or homelands. How that fits into your answer is also fine. Homeland. So the daimyo had to travel back and forth between Edo and their homelands, Edo and their domains, Edo and their fiefs, Edo and their country houses, whatever you want to say. Just make sure you can say words that are clear and you're comfortable with. That's what's important. Okay. In this model answer, they use the word fourth from the counting from the bottom going up. There's a word they use, entourage. If you looked at that, maybe you saw that there's a word entourage, which just means like a parade or procession, and it's not a very, it is used sometimes, but it means a very gaudy or display. Like that's probably what the daimyo gyodetsu was. It's kind of like a gaudy display of wealth. And so that has the meaning of the entourage, like, big important people, group of people traveling. So if you don't like that word, though, you can say the size of the procession, the size of the parade, the size of the daimyo gyoretsu, was da-da-da. Okay? Good. I think that's fine. The next one, it's actually interesting. They have question 2 first and then question 3. So the bigger part of this whole Sankin Kotai, the bigger rule or policy was Sankin Kotai. Among the Sankin Kotai was this daimyo gyoretsu, or traveling back and forth. So question 3 kind of came before question 2 in this
Yeah, already.
already, right? So anyway, let's go just, think of them separately. And question 3 says, in the Edo period, there was a system called Sankin Kotai. What was the purpose of it?
The purpose of Sankin Kotai was to weaken the financial power of the daimyos so that the shogunate can survive safely and to control the daimyos very easy.
Okay. And tell me more about the Sankin Kotai. What was it?
The Sankin Kotai is a rule determined by the shogunate. With the rule, the daimyos were forced to go back and forth to Edo and from Edo, to and from Edo.
Okay.
And the travel cost them very highly because they had attendant. The daimyos brought or took many attendants, maybe 300, maybe it's up to the daimyo's class.
Okay.
Sometimes only 100. But anyway, it cost them very highly. So they are kept poor.
Okay. And just one other last thing about Sankin Kotai that was very interesting is that the daimyo's family.
Hostage.
Yeah.
Hostage, yes.
Tell me about that.
Okay. In the system or rule, the daimyo's wives and children had to stay in Edo until the daimyo died or ceased to be a daimyo.
Mm-hmm.
So the daimyo was very difficult to resist the shogunate.
Right. Okay, good. So that's part of that, right? The hostages, the traveling back and forth, right? Sometimes it's they refer to the Sankin Kotai as what is it, the alternate attendant system, which sometimes they need to live in their homelands and Edo alternately or every other year.
Every other year.
Yeah, that sometimes makes it a little clear. Every other year, so they had to go to Edo every other year, or travel back and forth. Not every other year, but every other year. So sometimes that is also a little more clear than alternately every other year. You can even say. So the alternate attendant system where they had to travel to and from Edo and their homelands every other year. Okay, good. Let's go on to let's go to you. Okay, and the same question. So, as in the Edo period, there was a system called Sankin Kotai. What was the purpose of it?
Sankin Kotai was the alternate attendant system. This is as a means of political control. Each feudal lord was required to spend every other years in Edo and live in his family as hostages, as a hostage. Okay, excuse me, as hostages.
I don't want to laugh. Everybody has trouble with this. So say it. What is it? Leaving their families as hostages.
As hostages.
Yeah.
When he returned to his homeland. It costed maintaining 2 residences and traveling back and forth costed a lot of money.
Cost
A lot of money, and it prevent the feudal lords prevented the feudal lords from building up wealth and keep them poor.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, good. Why don't you practice that again? Why don't you practice that again? Let me ask you that again. Maybe say it a little smoother. Okay. And the reason I laugh, I don't want to be rude, but it is, everybody has trouble with his families. They don't know what to do. Is it family, family members, family kept as hostage? But it should be plural. Okay? And this is also for answer number 2 also. They have, members of his household were kept as hostages. Yeah, so if you want to say members of their family were kept as hostages, or families were kept as hostages. But it should be plural. Members of, like in this sense, members of his family were held in Edo as hostages. The families, the daimyo's families, were held as hostages. Okay, good. So tell me about Sankin Kotai. What was the purpose of it? And the purpose, okay?
Sanki Kotai was the alternate attendant system as a means of political control. Each feudal lord was required to spend every other years in Edo.
Every other year.
Every other year.
Good.
In Edo, leaving their family members as hostages when he returned to his homeland. And the expenses were maintained 2 residences, traveling back and forth cost a lot of money. It prevented the feudal lords from building up wealth.
Good, that sounded much better. The tenses of the verbs were correct, right? Good, that sounded a lot better. I think when you practice the second time, it sounds better. Unfortunately, the guide test, you don't get to practice it twice, so make sure you can say it pretty good. But that's fine. Yeah, just be careful. I know you said that the Sankin Kotai was prevent the feudal lords. It should be prevented, but then you corrected the second time, So it's past tense, some of this, right? Okay. We'll go on then. We have question 4. Question 4 is, what is Tokaido Goju-san Tsugi? Okay. To make it simple, to make it simple, don't have to go into all this explanation. What I mean is, Tokaido was one of the 5 routes constructed by Tokugawa Ieyasu. And all of this, it formed a series of road linking Edo, which was a seat of power for the military government with the rest of Japan. And then it was connected with Kyoto, the then capital of Kyoto. You see how this is long? So what I'm saying is that Tokaido was a route between Edo and Kyoto. That's all. Okay? If you want to make it very simple. This is a nice explanation, but it's very complicated. So it was the route between Edo, which was the seat of the government, military government, and then it was connected to Kyoto, which was the capital at the time. But if you don't want to say that, just say there was a main road that ran between Edo and Kyoto. Okay? Also, this word, the then capital of Kyoto, is not normal English. We wouldn't probably, the then capital. The capital at the time. Yeah. So the Tokaido connected Edo with Kyoto, which was the capital at the time. Or which was the capital at that time. Okay? And in Japanese, it's the same as toji no, right? But in English, when you get this toji, you end up with a lot of hard, long explanation. It just doesn't, become simple. But if you want to say, like, for example, one of the routes, the connected Edo with the capital, with Kyoto, which was the capital at the time. Okay, but if you don't want to say that, just connected Edo and Edo and Kyoto. Okay, so I will let you do this, and again, you don't need to make it very complicated. The last thing is, to me, a little funny, is they call these post stations. Okay? And I think for the guide test, it works. Now, if somebody says post office, you immediately know what it is. But post station is post station. What's that? It just doesn't translate well into English.
Government stations.
No, it's fine. For the guide test, post station is fine because that's the official name. It's okay. But most people will not know what a post station is.
What is it called?
It's well, what it is, isn't it where there were mail? Yubing, right? Wasn't it where they brought the mail? So it's fine. It's just, I think now it was a station. It was like, instead of trains, right? It was a place that they brought the mail, and then people came and collected the mail. But instead of being a post office, it was considered a station, like a whole little town or something. Okay?
So what do you call it in other words?
I would say post stops.
Stops.
Yeah, that could work. Probably people might understand that. But for the guide test, post station is fine. Because that's what they translate this tsugi. Isn't that the word tsugi something? Maybe, I don't know what is. Goju-san means 53, so the tsugi must mean postal stations or something. Okay, I won't spend much time talking, but that's, again, let's listen to your answers and see. But it doesn't have to be this long because it's a lot of things to remember. So you can make it much simpler in post stations or, post towns. Postal towns also as an adjective. We don't say postal office, right? So I guess it's okay to say post station or post towns. Because I think in America too, there are places that people would go to pick up their mail, and the post would only go to certain towns, and everybody had to go into town to pick up their mail because they did not bring it to everybody's houses way in the big farms that are far away. So it's kind of the same thing. I think there was like a collection area, main center for mail, and people went to the station or the little, I don't know, maybe it was a little building like a station or something. They picked it up. Okay, so what is Tokaido Goju-san Tsugi?
Tokaido Goju-san Tsugi, it was a highway between Edo and Kyoto, which was the capital at that time. And Tokaido literally meant the eastern seaboard. And there were originally 53 spots along the Tokaido road, and where travelers had to present traveling permits at each spot when crossing.
Okay, and what were at these spots? What were at these spots?
There were lodgings, stables, and some other. The most places were scenic spots. Had scenic spots, or there were a lot of historical places at these stations.
Okay, right.
So this system, it contributed to the development of a local economy and encourages the flowering of culture, regional culture.
Culture, I even heard it
Flowering?
Yeah, it
Right.
even promoted tourism, I heard.
Oh,
but
tourism.
People traveling, okay. Right, okay. So in your answer, just mention that also at these spots, people could, at the time they had horses, so there were stables, there was lodging, and there was food. So a place people could rest at these stations, at these spots. Okay, good. And that was fine about, you didn't explain too much, but it was good. Kyoto, that was the capital at the time. What is the Tokaido Goju-san Tsugi?
Okay, since Tokaido Goju-san Tsugi is a very long Japanese, so I will explain parting to Japanese. So Tokaido and Goju-san Tsugi. So Tokaido is a road name which linked or connected Edo, now Tokyo, to Kyoto. And Goju Santsugi means post post stops.
Okay, 53 post.
53 post stops.
Okay.
Between Kyoto and Edo. These stations provided travelers with food, lodging, stables, and so on. So the road laid along the eastern coast of Honshu. Because there are these stations or stops were located in scenic places, the famous painter Hiroshige Ando produced a series of 55 woodblock prints, which include 53 stops and Edo, Nihonbashi, and Kyoto.
Right. Okay, good. All right, good. You used his name as what, Ando Hiroshige? And there's also, they say Utagawa Hiroshige. I think it's the same person, right?
Yes.
I think in the West, people who know about ukiyo-e call him Ando Hiroshige.
Ando Hiroshige.
Yeah,
It's
that's
better.
yeah. Well, I don't know, but maybe it's better. Either one is okay.
Okay.
But technically, I think people in the West know him as Ando Hiroshige, Hiroshige Ando,
Okay.
better than this Utagawa Hiroshige. Okay. He made 55 wood block prints.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about wood block printing, the ukiyo-e. Can you tell me more about it?
Yes. Ukiyo-e is a wood block print. It was that form of culture was developed in Edo era, and especially the later in Edo period. I would say around
In the later part.
later part.
Okay.
Around 1800s, and besides Ando Hiroshige, there are other many famous painters. There were many other
Yeah. Uh-huh.
many other painters, such as Katsushika Hokusai. I forgot the name, but some. And the object were kabuki actors, landscape, and small wrestlers. So many, and it was very colorful one.
Okay, good. Can you tell me where can I see ukiyo-e today?
Excuse me.
Where can I see ukiyo-e today?
There are many places that you can see their ukiyo-e. For example, ukiyo-e woodblock printings can be found in Edo Tokyo Museum, located in Ryogoku. It is a station near. Ryogoku Station is located by the JR Sobu lines and Edo lines.
Okay, yeah.
And also Ueno Kokuritsu National Museum in Ueno Park. You can find woodblock printings.
Good. All right, those are two. I think in Harajuku, isn't it called the Ota? You never heard? I think in Harajuku, I've never been there, but I believe there's a ukiyo-e museum called Ota Kinen, Ukiyo-e Kinenkan or something in Japanese if it's like that. But anyway, the Ota Ukiyo-e Museum, there's also that place also, which I believe is in Harajuku. When I find free time, I need to go check these out. I just learned from students and from the internet. But okay, good. Can you tell me about some other cultures that developed during the Edo period?
During the Edo period, many local culture was flourished and developed. For example, Yu Zenzome and Nishijin Ori, and produced in Kyoto, and the Nishijin Ori and Yu Zenzome dyed silk fabrics are very famous as such items as kimono sashes, neckties, tablecloths, and scarves. And
Okay. Let me ask him. Can you tell me? I heard bundaku also developed during Edo period. Can you tell me more about bundaku? What is it?
Bunraku is a puppet theater. It was developed by Chikamatsu Monzaemon, who is a famous puppet theater writer. And it's still now you can see the theater in Osaka, especially in Osaka, and sometimes in Tokyo National Museum.
Theater.
Theater. Yeah. It's a puppet theater, so the persons persons operate the puppet, and some storytellers, narrators, narrates the story with shamisen music, musical instrument. So the story's object, title, and contents are about the human's love or love story or samurai's story. So the contents based on the mainly from Kamakura era to Edo era.
Okay, good. Yeah, the narrators are actually like kind of singers too, right? Because sometimes singers, joruri, right? If you say narrator, it sounds like speaking, but they're kind of like singing, right? It's not just speaking voice, but kind of a singing voice. So you might want to say narrators who sing.
Narrators who sing.
Right, because they sing the story.
Sing the story.
Yeah.
And his name, title might be narrator.
Yeah, that's fine.
Narrator.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but in English, when they say the narration is normally something that is just spoken, like I'm speaking now. I'm narrating the story. Means I'm just telling the story. But joruri, the music and singing in bundaku is actually narration through story, narration by song, or narration by singing.
Singing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So narrators sing a story.
Right, sing the story. Good.
Sing the story. Okay.
That's fine. Good. Going back to bundaku, tell me about the puppeteers and the puppets. Can you tell me more about the puppets and the puppeteers?
Okay, the puppet of bundaku is about one of third life-sized.
Okay, it's two.
How can I say?
I believe it's 2/3
2/3.
life size.
Okay, 2/3 life-size doll, and it is operated by 3 puppeteers, and the other puppeteers are very experienced operator.
Okay. Operators.
Operators, and it is said to be it is necessary to train over 30 years to become a professional puppeteers.
Okay. Why do you need 3 puppeteers?
The door is operated by 3 pads.
3
parts of
3
the
parts.
body.
Okay.
Of the body, doll body, and the left hand, left arms,
Okay.
right arms, and their body with their head and mouth.
Who operates, what does the main puppeteer do?
Main puppeteers operate hold their body with their head and mouths.
Head and
Mouth.
mouth. Okay, and
left, arms.
right arm.
Right arms.
Right arm.
Right arm operated by other puppeteers.
I think the main one operates the head and the right arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. I thought you might do. You seem to know. Okay. The main puppeteer operates the head and the right arm. The second one operates the left arm. And the third one operates the feet. Okay. And so they have to hold it and do it. And I think the main puppeteer, most of the time, what I've seen just once I went, and then I've seen just a little bit on the TV. The main puppeteer usually wears a hakama, and then sometimes, depending on the status of the other, they might wear black clothes. Okay, good. So the puppet is 2/3 life size. Another explanation is the puppet is between 1 and 1.5 meters big. So they're big puppets. Okay, and then there's 3 puppeteers, one to move the head and right arm, one to move the left arm, and the third puppeteer moves the feet. Finally, he made me mention, but because it's a puppet play, do children enjoy watching bundaku?
It's hard to understand for children because they narrative singers sing the story by the old languages, Japanese languages.
Old Japanese language,
old Japanese
right?
Language.
Uh-huh.
Language.
And what else?
And the movements of their story, that door, is quite slowly.
Okay, it's slow, right?
Slower.
And what about the story?
The story is about their love story, and the story features sometimes their ephemeral beauty of the life. Sorry.
Yeah, children wouldn't understand the story. The stories are not for children. They have, love stories and suicide stories and things like samurai stories that, tragedy and things. So they're not made. The stories are not for children. The stories are for adults. Okay? All right, enough about bundaku. I like nice answers for bundaku. I don't know much about it, but there's lots of things actually you can say. The size of the puppets, how many puppeteers, what they move. The stories are, for adults. They're not for children, etc. Okay, good. Let's go on to question 5. I'll give up bundaku. We'll go on to question 5. It talks about the samurai and why they always had 2 swords.
That is because the combination of the 2 swords were limited exclusively for samurai, and it was a symbol of the status, their status, and they are called daisho. Literally means big and small.
Okay, the swords were called.
The swords are called daisho in Japanese, and it literally means big and small. A shorter one was used as a spear sword in combat, and it was also used in the leisure of seppuku.
Okay, it was always used in.
It was also used in the leisure.
Oh, okay. It was also used to
commit
suicide. Yeah, that's clear. Yeah, it was also used to commit suicide.
Yeah. And the shorter sword could be worn at all times.
Okay.
Even if he could sleep with it under his pillow.
Okay, but not the long one, right?
No.
No. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, the reason I had you say the swords instead of they, because you were talking about samurai. So in English, if you're talking about the samurai wore the sword and their status was determined by wearing two swords or something. But they were long and short or big and small. You needed to make it clear that the swords were big and small. That's all. That's why I had you say the swords, just to make that clearer. Okay, instead of they. Was samurai they? Who's they? Samurai or the swords? Okay, good. That's fine. You don't have to go into much detail about this. I think it's okay. Yeah? Okay. How about for you? Tell me, why did the samurai always wear two swords?
Yes. Samurai carried a longer sword and a shorter sword all together. The longer one was for combat, and the shorter one is also combat in case the longer one was broken. Also, the shorter one's mission was to commit a suicide. And these two swords together was only allowed for samurai class.
Okay. What kind of swords, how many swords did the other classes have?
Usually only one for other class. But I believe farmers were not allowed and were not allowed to carry only even one sword. But
Okay.
for merchant, maybe, it was allowed.
Right. But which one? Could they carry big one or small one?
It's not bigger one. It's small or a little bit longer than small one.
Right. Okay. Right. So the long one was only for samurai.
Yes, long
right?
one was only
and
for.
some classes could not carry any sword. And if they had it, it was a short one.
Shorter, yes.
Right. So only the long was samurai, but they could carry two.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
And the Yakuza could carry.
Yakuza?
Yeah.
Well, bad people probably had them. Yeah, bad people probably had 5 or 6 swords. So. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, basically, the answers just sound fine. I think you don't have to go into too much detail. So just know if they ask you, some classes couldn't have. If the other classes, what kind of swords they had, it was a shorter one, because the long one was only permitted by samurai. Okay? Good. Okay, we have another question. It's number 6. Why did samurai commit seppuku? And let me see if your answer comes clear. Because to me, the last sentence is not real clear in this model answer. Okay. Let's see your answer. Why did samurai commit seppuku?
Okay. There are some theories about this. And this question is a little bit difficult even to Japanese. So let me explain. Among some theories, Nitobe Inazo, who is a famous international person from Japan, he said in his book that the soul of the human resides in the belly. So samurai cut and opened the belly, saying, "See my belly if it's polluted or clean." So this might be the basic and very old idea, but I believe in the Edo period, samurai didn't care about that, forgot that already, and it was already a kind of ceremony. So by doing seppuku, committing seppuku, his honor was maintained. That's why they commit suicide by seppuku.
Okay. Why was the honor maintained? Why is that honorable?
The other execution style, such as hanging, fire execution,
Burning by fire, or burning, executing by fire.
executing by fire,
By being burned, I guess.
or being cut off the head.
Okay, being
Is looks very ugly and shameful. But seppuku is done by themselves, by themselves. So that's why they can keep their honor.
Right, and they take what? Their self-responsibility?
Self-responsibility.
Right, so they take self-responsibility for their actions.
For their actions.
Yeah. Okay, good. Interesting, okay. Yeah, let's ask you, why did samurai commit seppuku?
Seppuku was considered to be an honorable way to die. In the feudal ages, it was only permitted for those of high status in the hierarchy. In its earlier stage of development, seppuku was used by samurai during the war so that they would not fall into enemies' hands and be ashamed. And later, during the Edo period, it was also developed as the leader when one took responsibility for one's own mistakes. So seppuku was developed as a Japanese ritual in the feudal ages.
Okay, can you say ritual?
Ritual?
Ritual. Ritual. Make it three syllables. I think you say ritual.
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 Yeah.
Ritual.
Okay. Be careful of the pronunciation. I think a couple times you said ritual, and it's ritual.
Ritual.
Yeah, ritual.
Ritual.
Yeah,
Ritual.
Good.
Seppuku was a Japanese ritual.
Yeah, good. Okay. The thing is, it says, can you tell me, you mentioned about high class or high status?
High status for only permitted for those over high status in hierarchy.
Okay. High status, but among the samurai ranking, or this is what to me was not clear. It says, seppuku was not permitted for those of low status. So what? Samurai of low status or people of low status?
People of
Right. So only samurai could do seppuku. Right. So that's what needs to be clear. So
I just it would be better to say it was only permitted for samurai.
yes. Okay. Yeah, because it says it was not permitted for those of low status. So those of what? Was samurai no low status samurai or denied? Eh? So it's not the low status samurai, but people, ordinary people, right? Yeah, farmers and merchants. So this sentence mixes it up. So it would be better to say it was not permitted by ordinary people, and only samurai could commit seppuku. However, seppuku could not be permitted by samurai who had committed horrible crimes or something. Yeah. Okay, so just keep it, very simple but clear. So seppuku was only for samurai. Ordinary people could not do seppuku, but even samurai who had done horrible crimes could not do seppuku because seppuku was considered an honorable way to to take responsibility. But when you do something very bad, you had to be ashamed. And that's maybe by having their heads cut off. So I think it's very hard in English to say what. So being burned at the stake or being burned by, executed by burning, being beheaded is the word we use when you cut off the head. There's a word beheaded. B-E?
Being headed.
Beheaded. It's one word, it's a verb. B-E-H-E-A-D. Behead.
Head.
Yeah.
Headed.
Yeah. So being beheaded means having your head cut off. So the longer way to say is having your head cut off. Being burned for being burned.
Wow.
Yeah. Were considered what? Embarrassing, shameful. Yeah, there's a word.
It's just my curiosity. In Europe, being headed is a very normal execution style.
Okay, yeah, he's there. Look, he's asking if in Europe it was a very normal execution style. Probably one of the ways, being hung. Being hung is also one, and again, being burned alive was also, which is horrible. Everything's bad, but that's being burned to die was also done. But there was no kind of problem, from what I know, it's kind of seppuku type of thing, right? So being hung, being beheaded, and being burned were typical ways of executing people who had done bad crimes.
So it's just like Japan.
Probably like Japan, yeah. Sorry, yeah, the use of microphone. If you couldn't hear, just comments about being like Japan, right? Okay, is this clear? Yeah, so only samurai could do seppuku, and ordinary people couldn't, and samurai who had done very bad crimes were not allowed to commit seppuku, which was considered an honorable way to die. Okay, let's take a break, and then we will come back and do the last 6 questions. Okay, let's continue, and we will go to question number 7. Question number 7 asks, why did the shogun have more power than the emperor? Okay, let me listen to your answers. I want to see what you have to say. Okay?
Okay. Emperors have reigned over Japan for more than 1,500 years in Japan. But the effective power of the emperors was limited throughout most of the history in Japan.
Okay.
From the medieval period, the members of the military gradually became more powerful than the court officers. And eventually they took over the leadership. So the emperor gave him the title of shogun, and then the shogun conducted politics as the emperor's representative. But still, the emperor has long been highly respected since ancient times, even today.
Okay. All right, maybe. All right, let's have him do it. I think I probably want you to do it again after. Okay? Can you answer for me, please? Why did the shogun have more power than the emperor?
In ancient times, the emperor and then aristocrats had a real power to govern Japan, but they came to make light of military power or military strength and weapons, and to hate killing people. So it was a natural result that the warriors, samurai, come to govern or rule Japan with weapons. But the authority of the emperor was maintained because the samurai or shogun wished to make use of the authority. And also, the emperor made use of the shogun by designating them as a governor for the emperors.
Okay. Press it back. Let me just try it again. What, it's kind of a very simple question, but why did the shogun have more power than the emperor? Because the shogun had an army and the emperor didn't have an army, right? So there's something that's very simple, but the emperor had the status and his symbol as head of state was maintained. And so maybe he said the emperors took advantage of the samurai by having the samurai be the army. And the samurai took advantage of the emperor by making him the symbol of the state and like the central figure, but without power. So there's something about this question, I think, it needs to be a little bit more clear. Basically, the shogun had an army, right? So the
army or I hesitated to say army.
well, I just, yeah.
At that time, army is in modern society.
Well, yeah,
you can call it the army.
yeah. Don't think so specifically. I think just an army works as a military force. So just like I just speak in very common, easy words, but the shoguns had the shogun had an army. Okay? And so the emperor did not have an army, but the emperor was lucky. Really, he was lucky because they kept him as a symbol of state, because the shogun had all the power. If they wanted to stop the emperor system, they could have just killed the emperor and say, I'm emperor. Right? But they did
The
it.
other countries in the world, all
Oh, yeah.
kings and the emperor were killed.
Right. That's
Yeah,
why there's no long line of kings and queens, because they killed off one and another family would come and do it until they killed. And so Japan has the longest line of emperors in the world because the emperors were kept as a symbol of state and allowed to give authority to the shogun, and he let the emperor just stay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Why don't we try this one again? Let's make this a little more clear. Both of you, I'll have you to try. Why did the shogun have more power than the emperor?
That is because the shogun had the military power,
Okay.
and the emperor did not have one.
Okay.
And the emperor has long been highly respected as a symbol of the state, and they are central figures. And the shogun became more powerful than the court officials. So the emperor gave him the title of shogun.
Okay. Emperor gave the shogun.
Shogun.
Or emperor gave
the title, the official title, and the shogun conducted politics.
Okay.
Even today, it is secured as such under the current law as a symbol of the state.
Right. So the emperor really doesn't have any political power. He's just kind of a symbol of state.
Symbol of the state.
Okay, good. Let me ask you the same question again. Why did the shogun have more power than the emperor?
Because the shogun and the shogunate had a real power of military force. And backed by the military force, they could govern Japan for the emperor. In ancient times, the emperor had a real power with weapons and military force. But eventually, they discarded the weapons and military forces. And then the shogun, the emperors designated samurai, a top samurai, as a shogun, and the shogun could control Japan with military force.
Right.
But
Yeah, that's fine. Good. All right. Yeah, you can keep. Let's just go on to question 8 then. Good. This is fine. Why did Japan cut off its relationships or relations with the outside world for over 200 years? Why did Japan close the country?
The direct trigger of the isolation policy was a riot or rebellion which occurred 1637. The riot occurred by the farmers and Christians brought up the riot.
Brought up made the riot. Let's see.
Made the riot. And of course, the shogunate wanted to suppress the riot, sending the big number of samurai warriors. But it took time, a few months, for that farmers, against the farmers. Astonishing at the strong resistance by these farmers and Christians, they decided to check or stop the Christianity. That's why they took the isolation policy.
I think your explanation before why is good, but it's a little long. And so they stopped Christianity, but you didn't tell what is so bad about Christianity.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So let's try that again. I think you could say just there was a rebellion by farmers and Christians. So the government needed to stop that, and they stopped it because Christianity did. So let's try that again.
Okay.
I think, go more into why they closed the country and what the reason for closing. Yes, to stop the rebellion, but just try it again. See if you could give a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay.
The direct trigger was the riot by the farmers and the Christians, and they resisted very fiercely against the shogunate. The Christianity is centered around love and equality and so on, while the shogunate took a policy of a caste system. So these two were incompatible. That's why the shogunate decided to isolate Japan completely from the outside world, to check or to avoid the Christian priest come from other countries.
Right, okay, so they stopped Christianity, and also they closed the country to prevent trade.
Trade.
Right, so that also should be part of your answer. So they also, by closing the country, the daimyo were not allowed to trade with other countries and become rich, so the shogun, the Tokugawa shogunate, closed the country. So stopping Christianity and stopping trade.
Yes. They wished to monopolize the profit from trade.
Right, and not allow other daimyo or the lords to become rich, which could also then lead to rebellion. Okay, so those are the points that you probably need to add. Okay?
Okay.
All right, good. Let's try Same question. Why did Japan cut off its relations with the outside world for over 200 years?
Okay. One of the reasons was that the national isolation policy was adopted by Edo government for protection from European countries. In the early Edo period, the numbers of Christians got increased rapidly, and they became powerful and threatened their feudal lords. So the shogunate government afraid that Japan would be colonized by Western countries after the spread of Christianity. And another reason was that it was adopted to prevent local feudal lords from gaining wealth by trading with the Western countries, foreign
Okay.
countries.
And why was Christianity so bad? Why didn't the Tokugawa shogunate like Christianity?
Because their policy adopted by the Edo government is very contrasted. In the
Very contrasts.
contrast to the Christian theory.
How?
How-
That's what I need to know. Why is Christianity so bad?
Because the shogunate government adopted the strict caste system. And the society was divided into four.
Four classes.
Four classes, and samurai were at the top of the hierarchy, and they were only for 5% of the population, and the others are the rest.
Okay, and what did Christianity say?
The Christian, because Christians are made up of farmers.
Well, okay. Christianity was bad because Christianity said all people are equal. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And in Edo society, people were not equal. Everybody had a caste they were born into. Samurai could always be samurai and they were at the top, but samurai were not equal to merchants who were dirty and handled money. But in Christian society, samurai and merchants and farmers, everybody's equal. God loves everybody the same. And Tokugawa said, no, it doesn't work in our society, so they banned it. Okay, so that's why is Christianity bad, is because it did not work with the Tokugawa caste system. And it was a threat. If everybody was supposed to be equal, then everybody, the farmers who are 80% might rebel. Because, of course, they were the second in rank, but they were the working hardest and poorest, right? So anyway, that's why. So there's three things. Equality did not work in the four-class caste system. The threat that if Japan became more Christian, the foreign countries would come and colonize, and the seclusion policy prevented local lords from trading with other countries and becoming rich. So only Tokugawa could control all of the trade and the money. Okay? Okay, so those are the 3 points for this answer. Good. Okay, we'll go on to question number 9. And this question asks, why did ninja dress in black? Okay?
Ninja were professional spies in the feudal ages, and they conducted their espionage activities.
Okay, spy activities is
spy
fine.
activities. Yeah. Their main duties were to secretly enter enemies' territories and to gather information. And sometimes they gloved the enemy's food and weapons.
Sometimes they what? Clubbed?
I mean plunder. Plundered the enemy's food and weapons.
Okay.
And they obviously did not wear clothes that would make them stand out. So in the 20th centuries, ninja have been depicted in films and comics. They were very popular characters. So they are usually pictured as dressed in black.
Good. All right, good. Yeah, they're dressed in black because, maybe in the daytime they wore regular clothes, but at nighttime, so they would not stand out, they wore black clothes. But they probably wore regular clothes normally most of the time, except when they were doing their spy activities at nighttime. Because wearing black clothes in daytime, you still can be seen, right? So usually the spy activities at nighttime not to stand out. Okay, good. That's interesting. Yeah, that in the TV and the movies or comics, they're always pictured as wearing black clothes, right? Okay, good. Can you tell me why did ninja dress in black?
Okay, ninja is a spy. Their job is to obtain information from the enemy and also sometimes assassination. They act or they did these things at night, mainly at night, in the enemy's castle and also in the enemy's premises.
Premises, okay.
Premises. So they should not stand out. And so dressing in black is very suitable to act in stealth.
Okay, to act?
To act in stealth.
Okay,
Stealth.
act in stealth, right. Okay, what other, nowadays, like on the kabuki stage and things, people wear black. Why do they wear black?
It's not a spy. They are not spies. They help the actors, for example, changing the clothes.
Okay, right.
And setting up small tools, props.
Props,
Yeah,
okay.
small props on the stage. So if they are not dressing in black, it's stand out. So that's why they dress in black.
Right, okay, good, right. So yeah, there's kind of a tradition of dressing in black not to stand out or to appear invisible, right? So on the kabuki stage, and I think, like I said, some of the bundaku puppeteers also might wear black. So there's like this tradition in Japan, where at Western stage, I've never seen people come in black and do things like that. So in Japan, it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to see him. But it's interesting to watch, right? Okay.
I assume not to see them.
Yeah, you assume not to see, like, oh, don't say, but they're there, So you watch them set it up or change their clothes, right? So I think that's kind of maybe something like the ninja wear black clothes because of that. Same thing, not to be stood out, not to look like you're there. Okay. All right, let's go on to question 10. Question 10 asks about what was the Edo period like? And there's lots of things we can say, so please tell me, what was the Edo period like?
Yeah, the Edo period spanned from 1603 to 1867.
Okay.
There were few wars and battles. So relatively that period was peaceful. Because of that, the new forms of culture were developed, such as kabuki, puppet theater, ukiyo-e, etc. And as for politics, the shogun governed Japan and there was a caste system, and also Japan was isolated as a policy from outside the world, from the outside world.
Yeah, that's probably okay.
yeah.
Don't make it too long. Good. I just one question. A lot of people mention that, Edo society was very peaceful. Why was it so peaceful?
One reason is that is because of the isolation policy.
Okay.
No invasion by
Right.
the other countries.
Okay.
And also the farmers occupied 80% of the population. These people had no real military force, no weapons, because they are not allowed. The shogunate was very strict to control them. They not allowed. The farmers have weapons, so that's why
Farmers were not allowed. Right.
will not be allowed.
Were not. Well, the farmers were not allowed.
Were not allowed to hold weapons.
Right. Okay. Right. So basically, not just they controlled the peasants who were 80% who could not have weapons, which was also good. But basically, society was very strict. It was very rigid.
Yeah.
Everybody lived in their own little class and did
Yes.
what they had to without interfering with other classes or trying to make trouble, because it was very strict. So
Yes.
society was very strict.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Let's ask you then, same question. What was the Edo period like?
The Edo period was from 17th to the mid-19th century. Tokugawa Ieyasu established the Edo government, and the shogunate government centralized the power and control over the country. And this period has two striking features. One of that is Edo government.
One is that.
One is that Edo government created a balance of power under the strict caste system. Society was divided into strict four classes. Samurai were at the top of the hierarchy. And the second one is for the protection from the European countries. The national isolation policy was adopted by the government, and Christianity was strictly prohibited. It was a time when prosperity and peace lasted over 250 years.
And what happened during that 250 years? Anything special? Kabuki.
Excuse me.
Kabuki.
Oh.
Etc., right?
Yeah. There are many cultures, many Japanese traditional cultures were developed during the Edo period. For example, Kabuki and Bunraku, and also no performances were highly developed. And also the Sankin Kotai, the system, alternator attendant system,
Right.
developed their local economies and cultures and regional cultures.
Okay, good, right. So, again, during this time there was the peace and isolation, so Japanese culture developed uniquely, right? And I guess, I always say Japan lived in a bubble. There was no influence from the outside world, basically. So it's the culture, especially like kabuki and bunraku, ukiyo-e, things like this, were able to develop without any influence from the outside world. And plus, because society was so strict, Japan was able also to live in peace. So everybody kind of, I don't know how, it must have been hard life, but enjoyed themselves in this, society that did not have a lot of problems. for like wars and things. Okay, good. So actually, in one sense, I would say Japan was lucky. Because they said they closed the country, but if the foreign powers wanted to come, they would have come. Right? Because they eventually did come in 1853, right? But until that time, they said, no, Japan is a closed country, don't go, so then they didn't go. They bothered China and Southeast Asia, but they really didn't come. Because if they really wanted to, I'm sure they would have come. So Japan was kind of lucky they were able to.
It was very successful.
Yeah, they were lucky they could keep them away. Okay. Good. All right, those are good answers. So again, just kind of, there's lots of things you could talk about the Edo period. So I think that's fine. Okay, the next question we have is, have there been any female rulers in Japanese history?
There were 8 empresses recorded in Japanese history. Basically, the Japanese imperial succession is based on a hereditary system through the paternal line. However, there have been any cases where women
there have been some cases in which
women have succeeded to the throne when no male heirs existed.
Okay, good.
And at the present law, women are not allowed to succeed to the throne. And in the political term, no female prime minister has been inaugurated so far. Personally, it would be very nice if we have female leaders in the future.
Okay, good. You can try. Okay. Okay. Good. Have there been any female rulers in Japanese history?
Yes, 8 women ascended to the throne in mainly in Nara area, which
in
Nara in the Nara period.
Okay.
Which was in the 8th century. Among them, only one empress called Shotoku had a real power.
Shotoku.
Shotoku Empress.
Okay.
Shotoku Empress
Okay.
had real power, and the others had no real power. It was just temporary one. Temporal.
Is it Emperor Shotoku? Prince Shotoku, Empress
No.
Suiko? No, there was a Shotoku Empress.
Shotoku, yeah. Shotoku, it's
Okay.
She succeeded to the throne 745 something.
Okay. 'cause
Shotoku Prince, it was 100 years ago.
before?
Before.
Oh, okay, because I know the Emperor Suiko, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
At that time, yeah, Suiko was empress.
Okay, I didn't know there was Empress Shotoku. Okay.
Okay. Shotoku. Or Koken, it's the same person.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So after that, there were 3 shogunate period, but no female shogun appeared. And since Meiji era, Meiji period, big Meiji period, to now, no female prime minister.
Right. Okay, good. All right, one thing. Either way is okay, the Nara era or the Nara period, although it's easier to hear period. It's much
Period,
clearer
okay,
than
okay.
say Nara era, because sometimes I hear Nara area.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I say, yeah, sometimes Nara area
Yeah, so Nara period, Meiji period,
is better.
right, it sounds better. Edo period, it sounds just easier to understand. It's probably more common. Era is used more for written language.
Okay.
Okay, good. I'm really sorry, I kind of got confused with your answer. When I heard Shotoku, I was like, ooh. Can I have you, there's, just let me have you say that again. Can you say that again? Have there ever been any female rulers in Japanese history?
Yes, 8 women ascended to the throne mainly in the Nara period.
Okay.
One of the empress called Shotoku had a real power, while the other 7 had no real power. They were just temporal. After that, there were 3 shogunate period, but there was no female shogun. And also, after since the Meiji period to now, there was no female prime.
Maybe say there has been no.
There has been no female prime minister.
Right. Okay. Good. Who was the last empress?
The last empress? I forgot the name. She was. She ascended to the throne 1750, something like that. Yeah, I forgot the name. Her name.
Go Sakuramachi?
Sakuramachi.
Yeah,
Go
Go
Sakuramachi.
Sakuramachi.
Go Sakuramachi.
Yeah, was the last one, I think, from 1750 to around 1750 to around 1770, so about 20 years. She was the last empress. Okay, good. One thing interesting about this empress or female emperor or something, they have, sometimes you'll come across this female emperor. And I go, why do they say female emperor? It's kind of confusing in the way the languages work. Because in Japanese, if it's female or male, you still say tenno. Where in English, there's an empress and emperor. Now, sometimes you say that in Japanese, say, no, empress means the emperor's wife. So there's confusion a lot of times. But female emperor sounds funny, basically. So empress is probably better.
Okay. So empress means two meanings.
Yeah.
One is the wife, and the other is real tenno.
Yeah. But usually we would not say male emperor. It's like saying, oh, male queen. You don't say male queen, right? Or female king, you don't say that, right? In English, it's king and queen is hakkiri, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we don't say male queen, or male or female king. We don't say that. So just use empress.
Empress.
Yeah, even though the Japanese language does not change between male and female tenno. Okay?
Okay.
Good. All right, that's good. One more question today, and then maybe we'll review some of the questions we had today, is why is Edo Castle called the Imperial Palace now? And to me, this is just, I laugh at the question. I shouldn't laugh because it's a good question, but it's just so simple.
Yeah, it's...
Okay, you want to try? Why is it Edo Castle called the Imperial Palace?
Because now, in the place, the emperor lives. That's a question, and that answer. Generally speaking, the place where the feudal lords or daimyo or shogun live is called castle.
Right.
And the place where the tenno or the emperor lives is called castle, Paris. So that's why the present one is called Imperial Palace.
Right, because the emperor lives there now instead of the shogun, right? Yeah. So in the Meiji period, Emperor Meiji came from Kyoto.
Yeah.
He lived there, and so they can't call it Edo Castle, so they call it Imperial Palace.
Yes.
Okay. Good. It should be a very simple, easy answer. Okay. Tell me, why is Edo Castle now called the Imperial Palace?
That is because it has been the residence for imperial families since 1868 when the Tokugawa shogunate came to end, and the
Came to an
came
end.
to end.
Came to an end.
Came to end.
Mm.
Yeah?
Came. I would say came to an end.
And came to an end.
Yeah.
Came to an end. And the emperor moved from Kyoto. The name was changed in order to eliminate Tokugawa's influence and make a new start.
Yeah, okay. So came to an end. End becomes a noun. So like came to a finish.
Came to a finish. It's
Is it easier for you? Okay, so when the Meiji period came to a finish.
came to a finish.
When the Meiji period came to an end. When the Meiji period ended is okay. But came to end, it's probably correct maybe grammatically, but it sounds a little strange when I hear that. When the Meiji period came to end. I don't know why. We would make end a noun, so came to an end. Okay, that's fine. Why did the name Edo change to Tokyo?
Edo is the former name of Tokyo, and was the seat of Tokugawa military government. Was the seat of the Tokugawa military government for over 2 centuries, and this government and the shogunate came to a finish in 1868. So the name was changed from Edo to Tokyo.
Why?
Because of they want to eliminate Tokugawa's influence, they want to make a new start.
Okay, and what does Tokyo mean? Anything?
Tokyo means literally means eastern capital, and after the shogunate ended, the emperor moved from Kyoto, the former capital of Japan.
And Tokyo is east of Kyoto.
East of Kyoto, literally means that.
Okay, east of Kyoto, eastern capital, right. So because Tokyo is east of Kyoto, that's why they made the name Tokyo, right? Okay, let me ask you one more time. Why did Japan cut off its relations with the outside world? Let me just, for 200 years. What is Sakoku?
Sakoku.
There's another question. What is Sakoku?
Sakoku is isolation policy from outside countries. You said why Sakoku was?
There's two. Well, I shouldn't confuse you, but the question 8 today is why did Japan, cut off relations with the outside world for 200 years? There's also just the basic question: what is Sakoku?
What is Sakoku?
But the answer is probably going to be the same.
Okay.
Because you need to say why. In what is Sakoku? It's isolation policy. But that's not a good answer, right? It's just the start of your answer.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So I'll just ask you, what is Sakoku?
What is Sakoku? Okay. The Sakoku is literally meaning is isolation of Japan from outside countries. This policy was carried out during the Edo period, about 240 years. The reason why is that the shogunate of Tokugawa shogunate was very afraid of Christianity, and because the Christians were very strong-minded. So if they resist the shogunate, they knew it should be a very fierce battle. So they avoided that kind of things by the Sakoku. And also they the shogunate wanted to monopolize the profit from the trading with some other countries. Another thing is if if Japan was opened during that time, they might be colonized. Japan might be colonized by other countries. That is why they made Sakoku.
Right. Okay. Right. And then again, because just again, I like the idea that Christianity believes people are equal, love and equality, and that was not love and equality was not part of Edo society, which was based on a strict caste system. Good. All right. Can you tell me, Pastor Her, could you tell me how was Japan modernized after the Meiji Restoration?
After Meiji Restoration, Japan was rapidly industrialized and modernized. The new government imported many Western cultures, such as many cultures and systems. For example, new banking system and new Western style educational system. They made the centralized army. And also the new government set up their infrastructures to build many federal concreted buildings and set up their transportation bridges and also communication system. For example, telegraph was spread out the countries.
Okay, right. Spread throughout the country.
Spread out the countries.
Spread throughout?
Spread out through
spread.
Excuse me, spread through the countries. Oh?
Spread throughout?
Oh, spread throughout
the country.
The country.
Good. Yeah, you got that? Okay, good. Maybe one more question. Can you tell me who is the most important person in Japanese history to you?
You mean Japanese?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think, in my opinion, Okubo Toshimichi was the most important person in Japan. He led the Meiji Restoration about 140 years ago. He was a very powerful leader, so there are many persons who led the Meiji Restoration. Among them, the Okubo Toshimichi was his opinion was very clear, and he was very aggressive, and what he said was very, very persuasive to persuade other people. So that's why the Meiji Restoration was very successful. So I think, in my opinion, Okubo Toshimichi was the most important person in Japanese history.
Okay, good. Can you tell me what is your favorite period in Japanese history? What is your favorite period of Japanese history?
Personally, I love the period of the Edo, the later period. The end of the Edo period.
Okay, the latter part of the later part of the Edo.
Later part of the Edo period.
Okay.
Because the Edo period, it was a very peace and it was a time when peace and prosperity lasted over two centuries. But the strict caste system adopted by the Edo government was gradually gradually not adapted to their society.
Okay, it was yeah, okay.
And what I have one of the persons living in the end of the Edo period. It was Sakamoto Ryoma, and he was one of the leaders of the foundation of modern ages, and he is our leaders of the movement of by overthrowing the Tokugawa shogunate, and he was our key person to of the bloodless revolution. Yeah, it was transformed the feudal government to a new unified nation. But unfortunately, he was assassinated at the age of 33. But he is still one of the best loved figures in Japanese history.
Okay. What happened to Aizuchi? What is it? Aizuchi Momoyama?
Oh, Aizuchi Momoyama.
Aizuchi Momoyama. I thought you had that. I thought I was ready to you were going to say that. All of a sudden you changed. But be careful.
I love it more.
Okay, Aizuchi. Is
My
Aizuchi?
favorite, Aizuchi Momoyama.
Azuchi,
period.
Azuchi, right? Azuchi Momoyama. I thought you were going to say that again. Yes, what you chose last week or the week before. Okay. Be careful. That was good. Maybe a little bit more about the Edo period rather than Sakuma Ryo. What's his name?
Sakamoto Ryoma.
Sakamoto Ryoma. More than him. Tell about the Edo period maybe.
Okay.
So then you could say one of the most influential people in Japanese history was from that period. It was Sakamoto Ryoma, who was influential in getting things started to make a bloodless revolution. Okay? I might ask you that again in the next few weeks. So prepare what you want to say. Okay? All right. It's like, oh, she changed. Okay. There's nothing wrong with changes. Make sure what you say is good. Okay? That's fine. All right. I think we finished today. We have no more history. Next week is more like government politics type of questions. So that will be interesting also. Okay? So again, I thank you for coming and study hard for next week, and we'll see you then. All right. Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.